Hey everyone, we are now back with part 4 of the whole physical media haul collection. And well, we just had dinner now. Well, this is technically premiering Thursday, but I had filmed this in the same day. I just filmed part 3 first, then took a break, had dinner, cleaned up from dinner, and now I'm back with part 4. So, as you know, part 4 covers this lower half of this shelf, and then I'll be 2 shelves down and 2 more to go after that. So there'll be a couple more parts to film, but here we go. Let's get started with this 2 piles in front of me. So, starting off, we got The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2. Of the main Conjuring films, these are the 2 that I love. These are the 2 that I own. Really loved this one. Really loved this one a lot. First saw this in 2015 on TV. Everyone was hyping this movie up. Like, when this came out, everyone was saying, this is one of the scariest movies ever made. Like, I jumped so much watching this. And, like, this was a film that, extremely launched James Wan to the big leagues. He had gotten famous with stuff like Saw, but then he went on a downturn because Dead Silence and Death Sentence were not really big hits. Like, Insidious was somewhat starting to put him back onto the good path. This is the film that really made him a legendary filmmaker now. Like, this is what really got James Wan even more famous than he used to be. The Conjuring 2, honestly, I'm gonna admit this. I think The Conjuring 2 is personally my favorite film of the series, though. This one I saw in the theaters, like, around the time I had just taken my final exam of high school. And with that, I was finally done high school. So then after I finished, I immediately went to go see this movie. This is easily my favorite film of the series. And it was honestly a nice way to end my high school life. Right there. Honestly, a nice little ending to my high school journey. Right there. It was the perfect little send-off. So, I like both these films. I think I'm one of the few that likes Conjuring 2 better. And, yeah. And the third film, I did not like the third one whatsoever, so I did not buy it. And they were supposed to be getting a fourth one, but honestly, I don't have hope for the fourth one really being good at all especially because I definitely did not like the third one, so I don't have much hope for that movie. All right, I'll continue with this pal. 2023's Oppenheimer. Saw this opening night, very amazing experience. Ordered this from Amazon. Literally got this on Amazon on New Year's Eve of 2023 before 2024 was beginning. And I still haven't rewatched it on DVD yet, but yeah, I saw this in theaters opening night and definitely loved it. It was probably one of my favorite Chris Nolan films since Interstellar. Grown Ups, one of the few movies I like that everybody hates. Only the first one, that is. And yeah, there is Grown Ups 2, but I do not own Grown Ups 2 at all because I think that film sucks ass. High Tension. Well, what can I say? It's Alexander Raw's first movie, and guess what? It's not that good. No. Want to know why? Because guess what? The twist ruins it. It seems like a pretty chilling slasher film, but then you get the twist that apparently the killer was her all along, and then the film just loses all that fucking tension, and the film just goes down the toilet. So yeah, good fucking waste of potential right there. Oh, well, speaking of Alexander Raha, you got Mirrors, another horror film that I like that apparently everybody really does not like. Like if you understand some problems with it, yeah, but honestly the movie's really not that bad, and there's everybody around, this is a Japanese horror remake. I would disagree with that, because how this got made, Alexander Raha, originally this was going to be an Americanized remake of the Korean horror film, Into the Mirror. But Alexander Raha was like, what? Fuck that. That's such a bullshit idea. I want to take the concept and I want to make my own movie. So he did that, but now everybody thinks it's a remake of a Korean horror film. So that's the problem. Right there. And it really should not be called one, because it's not even the same movie. I've looked up what Into the Mirror is, and it's not even the same movie as this. It's the same concept, but it's not the same movie. But, yeah. I actually like this film. I think it's pretty terrifying and stuff, so really disturbing imagery in this. Yeah, this really epic death scene with Amy Smart in the tub. That's definitely pretty much the moment everybody really talks of. Even the people that don't like the film really admit that scene is very memorable. And here's a controversial opinion. The Amityville Horror remake. And want to know what the controversial opinion is? I like it better than the original movie. Yeah, there I said it. I actually think this version is better than the original, for a lot of reasons. For one, it's not overly 2 hours long. It actually gets to the important stuff. Like you don't, and the movie's actually about the family and not the priest. Well, I wouldn't say it's one of the best horror films ever made, but I mean, to be fair, none of the Amityville films are great. But honestly, I think of the whole series, I think this one is the one I can watch. Like this one, I can sit through the most. And honestly, like everybody really does not like Ryan Reynolds' performance in this movie, but personally, I actually thought he did pretty good for his like first transition into horror. Like around this time, he was kind of mostly playing in comedies. This was his kind of first very serious role. So, to be fair, the first times aren't always the easiest, but then he actually nailed the serious roles with Smoking Aces after that. So, things did improve. And, well, then you have a film I used to like, but it's not aged well. Drag Me to Hell. I did used to like that. Well, I don't know if I would like this now on rewatch, but I did used to like this, but now that I've become a more experienced film critic, I'm starting to realize there could be some problems with it, and especially the ending. The way that movie ends is pretty much kind of a big fuck you to the viewers. So that ending is a problem. And you got a double feature DVD now: The Blair Witch Project and Book of Shadows: Blair Witch 2. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm not really a big fan of this movie. No. I know there's a lot of people that really love this movie, but honestly, I'm just not one of them, but I can understand why it was successful. There is a reason why it was such a huge hit when it came out. Because found footage wasn't even a thing back in the 90s. This was the very first one, so guess what? And there was no internet. Everybody thought that movie was real, and those people really died. Right there, so they didn't know it was just a movie at first. They all thought that was real footage they were watching on a big screen. And then the internet got made, and it turned out the movie was indeed fake, so that's what caused all the backlash. But that's why this film is successful, because everyone thought it was real. I don't hate the movie, but I just don't really like it. I mean, there's some things I like about it. There are some little moments. The ending is pretty chilling, and the last scene with the confession actually is kind of a very heartbreaking horror moment. But other than that, I just can't really enjoy this one. This movie, on the other hand, I definitely can agree with everybody. This film is an utter pile of dog shit. Yes, I have seen Blair Witch 2016. It's better than Book of Shadows, but it also sucks. Alright, now you got Savages. Not really bad action thriller, I guess, but its characters just aren't really that great in this one. And I don't think this film really holds up. I don't think this film doesn't hold up any better considering all the Blake Lively allegations that are going on right now. You got Detective Pikachu. This was one of my biggest surprises of 2019. I gotta say, this is a film, like, I was not a big Pokemon fan growing up, and I didn't know what to think about this movie, but guess what? The film, I pretty much saw the film in theaters one afternoon, and I gotta say, this was honestly quite a big surprise. And I'm surprised we did not get a sequel yet. Like, where the fuck is Detective Pikachu 2? When the fuck is that ever going to come out? Because I would like a sequel to this film. But yeah, Detective Pikachu was actually quite a surprise. And Ryan Reynolds actually did very well playing the character. You got a musical film called Rent. Haven't bought it, haven't watched it. Yeah, it's alright. Well. Alright, 2 movies. From one franchise, you got The Butterfly Effect. The Butterfly Effect 2. Of the ones I've seen The Butterfly Effect, and I've seen The Butterfly Effect 3 Revelations, which is not even really a sequel, which honestly should be called its own thing, but I don't think I have that movie anymore, but The Butterfly Effect 1. I have seen that, and it's got a good concept. I will say that. It's got a pretty clever concept, but the things that do really turn me off are... The film is just honestly way too damn depressing. It feels way too damn bleak. And it's pretty much just a nihilistic movie from start to finish, so it's kind of hard to really enjoy it. I've heard this is not good at all. I've heard really bad things about the Butterfly Effect too, but I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really talk about that. Butterfly Effect Revelations, well, it's not really that great, but there's some nice kills in Butterfly Effect Revelations, so I'll give props to that. Got Looney Tunes back in action, easily the best Looney Tunes movie, no doubt, and honestly one of Brendan Fraser's best films. Loved watching this growing up. It's another childhood classic. The Shiloh double feature, Shiloh and Shiloh Season. My stepbrother gave me this one. When he had to purge out some films, he gave me that. So now I own it. Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood film. Haven't watched it. I was also given that one. I didn't buy that one. I was given it. All right. Shit. I can't believe I still have these Lord of the Rings duplicates. Damn. Really got to give them away. Alright. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, another Jim Carrey classic. I don't own When Nature Calls, but I like the first one better. When Nature Calls is funny, but I just think the first one's just a better film. The Never-Ending Story. Bought it, haven't watched it yet. But I've heard everyone say it has such amazing nostalgia for that film. Son of the Mask. Bought this for a rant. For an epic rant. Fuck you, Son of the Mask. Alright. Finally, we're on to the good piles now. We can go back to good movies. Alright. The Invisible Man. I saw this in theaters when the theaters were reopening. This was one of the films that they actually screened because there were no new releases coming out because of the pandemic. But theaters were reopening temporarily. So I actually was finally able to watch it back during that first few months after the first lockdown ended. But The Invisible Man, yeah, definitely saw that in theaters, and surprisingly really loved it. It's definitely easily Leigh Whannell's best film as a director. Right there, and sadly, when he followed that up with Wolfman, that film was disappointing. It's a shame in comparison to the greatness that was The Invisible Man. What the fuck happened? How did he drop that fast? From Invisible Man to fucking Wolfman? What? Alright. Wolf Creek. Alright movie. Not that special. Gave us one watch, and yeah, it's really just an Australian version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's a nice gnarly gore. I'll say that. Comedy classic Mean Girls. Definitely one of my favorite comedies of all time. Absolutely gotta love Mean Girls. Enough said. Double feature of John Candy. Uncle Buck and... Oh, right. Part 1 I mentioned, Cheaper by the Dozen 2 was a ripoff of a certain John Candy, Dan Aykroyd comedy. Now I remember the name of it. The Great Outdoors. Yeah, I love both these films. Both of these are very funny. Valentine's Day. Not a big fan of that one. Get Smart. Yeah, this is a pretty funny film. I wouldn't say it's really great, but you get some good laughs from Steve Carell, Annie Hathaway, Dwayne Johnson, and rest in peace, Alan Arkin. But were some good little laughs. I have not seen the show it's based off of, but I know Mel Brooks created it. Alright, some Happy Madison collection of movies. We got The Animal, did not watch that. The Benchwarmers, a film I like, people hate. I actually really like The Benchwarmers. Benchwarmers is pretty funny. House Bunny, not bad film. The Masters of Disguise, fuck. One of the worst fucking films ever made. No. Joe Dirt, never watched it. And you got, well, now that you've seen this sequel, I gotta find the VHS for this. I have this first one on VHS somewhere. Here it is. Yeah. This is how we do. If I see a sequel, I'm going to show the other film before it. So yeah. Since VHS, Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. DVD, the sequel, Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo. Now when it comes to this film's pretty good. It's got a few laughs. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like really. It's not really that great. I mean, it's just got a few. It's a few little occasional watch if you want like a decent little laugh. You want to see one of the few better films from Rob Schneider. The sequel, Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo. I fucking hated this film. It's pretty much a film. It was pretty much a film that gives such a basically fuck you to the first film's ending. If you watch the film, you'll understand why. Now we got 5 movies from one franchise. The triple feature of Final Destination 1, Final Destination 2, Final Destination 3. And then you got the Final Destination, the 4th one, which sucks ass. And then you got the prequel, Final Destination 5. So when it comes to these movies, the only ones I like are Final Destination 1, Final Destination 3, and Final Destination 5. Final Destination 3 is the only one of the series I really love. Other than that, I could just take or leave the rest. I'm not the biggest fan of this franchise. Basic Instinct, a lot of fucking sex and nudity in this movie. Yeah. One pornographic as fuck film. Like, this was a film that when it came out, any teen boy would rent it, hide it from their parents, and would frequently I would watch it in secret. It was pretty much like the equivalent of those kind of days for many 90s teenagers. Or 90s teenagers would try to sneak into seeing this in the theaters. Like, apparently the cast of the kids from Sandlot, the actors who played the kids in Sandlot, actually snuck into this film on their final day of shooting that film. So that's a funny story. Eight-Legged Freaks, a pretty underrated horror comedy with a bunch of giant spiders. If you like a film such as like Gremlins with spiders, like you'll probably get a kick out of this. That's like produced by and I think it's executive produced by the guy who directed Independence Day. So you got a good combo right there. War of the Worlds, a 2005 movie, one of Spielberg's most unrecognized films. Definitely a pretty good film. Like, if you could get past the annoying kid character, that is. Like, you know, like Dakota Fanning's a decent actress, but God, her character in that film is fucking annoying. God. Bloodshot. Watch this. It's alright. Speed Racer, one of my favorite film adaptations of a cartoon series, and apparently almost nobody likes it. That's so weird. Actually, no, people are starting to warm up to it. Well, the cartoon Transformers the movie, I'm not really a big fan of this film because it basically kills off half the Transformers like the very beginning. The ones you're supposed to be with. The first 2 Despicable Me films, Despicable Me 1, Despicable Me 2. These are the only 2. These are the only 2 that I like. So these are the only 2 that I own. And because you all know, I absolutely despise Minions. Liked Rise of Gru. I think I still need to buy that one though, because I don't own it. And well, I did not like Despicable Me 3, and I did not see Despicable Me 4 because I got really tired of the franchise, so I didn't waste my time watching it. So I didn't waste my time going to see it. Alright, last 4 of this pile. The Skeleton Key, one of the most underrated horror films of the 2000s. Like, this was kind of the film that Get Out in a way is kind of similar to. So that's kind of an ironic thing to know. But, yeah. This was pretty much the Get Out of the 2000s, except with Hoodoo and starring Kate Hudson this time. Like, this has one of the most shocking twists in horror. Easily, like, this film is just pretty underrated. Alright, now I got Chronicle. One of the, still have not unwrapped this yet. I bought this years ago. One of the best found footage movies of all time. Love Chronicle. And now you got some 2 underrated gems. National Treasure 1, National Treasure 2. I like both these films. These are also decent enough successors to Indiana Jones, except this time they're made by Disney and Jerry Bruckheimer. Like, now, I think I'm one of the few people I think likes National Treasure 2 better. I saw this in the theaters, and I think they're both pretty underrated films. Like, National Treasure 2, I think, is better because you can tell that now when Nick Cage is having much more fun with the role, a lot more in that movie. So I just like that film better. Alright, now on to the last one for this first part of that shelf, and of that lower half. So, here we go. Hobo with a Shotgun. Rest in peace, Rutger Hauer. A very underrated grindhouse film. Like, this film is gory as shit. Gets even fucked up at times. Like, it is fucking awesome. there. I'm surprised it didn't really. And I'm surprised almost no one remembers it anymore, sadly. Oh, speaking of Grindhouse. Like both these films. I think honestly the ones I like. I like both these films, but if I had to pick which one I prefer, I would say I think Planet Terror is the better one. Death Proof's all right. Probably Quentin Tarantino's weakest movie though, but Planet Terror is easily the best one of the two. But they're both good movies. Well, The Duplicate of 30 Days a Night, the solo copy. Kind of prefer watching the solo copy of it. I already talked about that in part 3, so I don't think I need to talk about it again. Beetlejuice! Not underrated. A Tim Burton classic of the 80s. One of my favorite horror comedies of all time. The juice is loose. I don't know what her problem is. God, I absolutely love that. That's one of Michael Keaton's best roles. The sequel, on the other hand, I did see a sequel, and it was good, but some things I did have a problem with, so I'm not sure I really want to buy the film. And also not to mention the movie kind of tries to make us sympathize with Jeffrey Jones's character when they kind of kill him off, and you all know I despise Jeffrey Jones for a lot of good reasons. He's not in the movie, I get that, but they still did technically use his likeness, so them using Jeffrey Jones's likeness was not really that comfortable. That didn't make me comfortable in my eyes, so decent like Beetlejuice 2, but I'm not sure I don't know if I really want to buy it, or probably not going to buy that film for my collection. It's more of a stream kind of good. The Lost Boys collection, the only reason I bought this was because I wanted to get just the first one, but you had to buy all 3 of these, but I love the first one. The Lost Boys, easily the best, probably to me the best vampire movie of all time. Lost Boys: The Tribe, bullshit. Lost Boys: The Thirst, bullshit. Only like the first one. Jacob's Ladder, a horror classic of 1990, and easily Adrian Lynn's best movie. Yeah, a scary as fuck film too. The Silence of the Lambs, another great horror masterpiece in the 90s. Hello, Clarice. Yeah, easily has Anthony Hopkins' most scariest performance and his best performance yet as Hannibal Lecter. Just one of the most notorious cannibals of cinema. Or even Buffalo Bill. The best horror movie of all time. John Carpenter's The Thing. Easily John Carpenter's best movie yet. This film is just a masterpiece from start to finish. Enough said. Reanimator, another horror masterpiece of all time. Like I got recommended this by John Lindsay 289 to check this movie out, and I gotta say it's definitely a horror classic. I reviewed it for Halloween Horror Movie Reviews in 2023. All right, we got a double feature now. Again, we got X from 2022 and Pearl from 2022. I gotta say, I like both these films. I saw both of these in the theater. X I liked, but honestly, I prefer Pearl way more. I thought Pearl was better. Even better, like one of the rare times for the prequel film, it's actually much better than the original film. But they're both good. I think Pearl's the superior one. Pearl's gonna become a killer by X, but that one, Pearl's a protagonist you really do feel sympathy for, especially with her heartbreaking yells that she's a star when she gets rejected from the role. Right there, I'm shocked Mia Goth did not get nominated for an Oscar for that film. It's easy, and this is coming from someone who's not even a big fan of Ty West. Those films are easily Ty West's best works. The third film, Maxine, was good, but also kind of a little bit disappointing at times, so I haven't really bought it yet. That film's kind of more of a stream watch. I mean, it's still pretty good, though, but it was a kind of a bit of a letdown compared to Pearl. Or maybe I was expecting a little too much, so... Alright. Megan, the unrated edition. I remember when I first saw this in theaters, I was not really a big fan of it because the PG-13 rating almost kind of ruined the film. But then, thankfully, on DVD, we got the unrated edition of the film. And so, thankfully, I was able to watch a much better version of the film we actually should have got instead. But yeah. Pretty good little film, I guess. The unrated version, that is. The PG-13 version, I'm not a fan of. When it comes to the sequel, Megan 2.0, if the theatrical cut is PG-13, then I'm going to wait for the DVD if they release an unrated version for the sequel. because I would rather watch the unrated version than another PG-13 fest. The Black Phone, a horror surprise. I saw this in theaters opening night. This is definitely one of the best horror films of this decade. And it's definitely one of the best Blumhouse films. The Black Phone was killer. Just easily great start to finish. A film that really surprised me. Very likable kids in this film. And Ethan Hawke is the scariest fuck character in this movie. And yeah, like, that's... But God, I'm pissed we're getting a fucking sequel to this film because of this... This film ended so perfectly. This film should just stay a standalone. Why is that so hard to ask in today's world? Not everything needs a sequel. Hereditary, the only Ari Aster film I like. Like, this was a like for a Sauce film. I'll admit I didn't really like that movie first time I saw it, but then I saw it a second time and then I liked it much better then. That was an improvement the second time around, but Hereditary, yeah. The one Ari Aster film I do love. And especially considering the guys directed a bunch of bullshit since then. Midsommar was mediocre, and Beau was Afraid was fucking awful. And he's doing this Western comedy starring Pedro Pascal, who I don't really have respect for as a person. I like him acting-wise, but I don't really have respect for him as a person. And Emma Stone, and I can bet you it's probably just going to be the same thing. Weird trauma shit happens, and probably both their characters are going to fucking die at the end. So I'm not excited for that film. Unless he decides to surprise me. Unless he does surprise me and actually decides to actually do an actually different ending and actually let the lead survive for once. But I highly doubt it because he seems to like doing the same ending over and over again at this rate, and it's getting annoying. Alright. Get Out. Blumhouse's best film yet, and easily one of the best horror films of the 2010s. Like, I sadly got to miss this in theaters, but then I saw it on DVD during Wisdom Teeth Recovery, and man, this film is awesome from start to finish. Daniel Kaluuya gives a great performance. The direction from Jordan Peele is terrific, considering a guy who was known for comedy, was known for a lot of comedic works. Like, this was his first work, and he really nailed it. Like there, and we can't forget that one of the first times we finally got a satisfying ending in horror. And I'm so glad this has not gotten a sequel. I'm glad they at least left this movie the fuck alone. Alright, now we are on to an entire franchise again. Oh, forgot the first one. Alright, an anthology horror franchise. All the VHS movies. You got VHS 1, VHS 2, I do not own Viral because Viral is utter. I do not own Viral because it's dog shit. For Blu-rays, VHS 94, VHS 99, VHS 85, and the newest kid on the block for not a Blu-ray but DVD, VHS Beyond. Yeah. Now when it comes to this franchise, I'm a little more mixed on it. Where the ones I do like are not. 94, 85, and yeah, 94, 85, and VHS 2. VHS 2 is the movie in the series is pretty much VHS 2 and VHS 85 are the two that I really love. And like 85 was actually quite a surprise for me. Like this was pretty much the first time where I liked nearly all the segments except for Technogod. But when it comes to the franchise as a whole, the reason why I still give the franchise a chance is because they always have a lot of good segments in the movies. There's always a killer segment every once in a while in each of the films. Like even Viral's, which I think is the worst one, actually has one good segment I like. But I think easily, besides just Viral, my other least favorite of the franchise as a whole is probably this one. The only one I liked about the first film was the David Bruckner segment, Amateur Night with the Succubus Girl. That segment's pretty awesome and pretty terrifying, but the rest of the segments I do not like. I do not like the wraparound with the dumbass guy, the one by Adam Wingard. Adam Wingard just kills that fucking film for me with that shitty wraparound he does. About these guys that cause a girl to show her tits in the parking lot and then vandalize the house. Like, we have to cut to that shit every few times, and that shit like lasts for 10 minutes. And it just ruins the film for a lot of people. especially myself. Other than that, it's just they're kind of, with the exception of a few good segments. The segment is just the franchise is just not my cup of tea, unless it means watching a segment alone. But now we got another Stephen King horror film, The Mist. Stephen King's The Mist. Definitely an underrated adaptation, and definitely one of the most shocking endings of all time. That's what I will definitely say. Like, surprised Frank Darabont didn't direct more movies. He really should have did more Stephen King adaptations. And then, of course, you've got an After Dark Horror Fest 8 Films to Die For, one of the only ones that I will admit is actually good. Borderland. This is pretty much the one I actually will admit is actually decently good enough of a film, because it's actually based off a real cult and it actually has realistic horror for a change. Like, because shit like that happens in that movie, like that could actually happen to anybody. Right there, like, if there's a gripe I have with it is that the movie stars Ryder Strachan, who was one of the many celebrities who defended Brian Peck. So, yeah, pretty much I have no respect for Ryder Strachan. Screw him. The Descent, one of the best horror films of the 2000s. And it really does have that John Carpenter-like feel. The Descent is awesome. One of the scariest films of all time. It's just an awesome movie from start to finish. Well, we are now on to another Ryder Strachan flick, Cabin Fever, aka Eli Roth's first film. Like, this is a pretty decent little throwback to stuff like Night of the Living Dead, and it pretty much has Evil Dead elements with elements of Night of the Living Dead and many other pandemic horrors. It's kind of like a satirical take on pandemic horrors while still being a horror film itself. But it's a pretty funny film. It's a nice little way to start off the career of Eli Roth, who is a pretty more split director. And yeah, I do not own the other 3 movies, such as the 2 follow-ups and the remake, because I think all of them are fucking terrible. So I don't own them. The Ring. Yeah, the American remake of The Ring from Gore Verbinski. Definitely another great horror film of the 2000s, and one of the few great horror remakes. I reviewed that last year for Halloween Horror Movie Reviews. Like, that's definitely probably the one J horror remake that I actually do really love. With a few rare. The Ring 2 I do not own because I think The Ring 2 is trash and so is Rings. So I don't own those movies. Alright. We are now on to the lower shelf now, the very last bit of the lower shelf. So here we go. Mulan, one of the best Disney movies of all time. That's such a great film. Easily. Mulan is such a childhood classic. Gotta love that film. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, easily by far my favorite Jim Carrey movie of all time, and easily my favorite role of Jim Carrey, no doubt. I like a lot of his comedy stuff, but to me, this one is easily his best film. Easily. I wish we got to see a little more drama roles from Jim Carrey, because he really does such an amazing performance in a dramatic role like this. Like, I wish we got to see Jim Carrey do more roles like this. I love his comedy stuff, but I would have liked to see him take on much more serious roles like this movie. That is easily his best movie. If you want to see what Jim Carrey's best film is, definitely check out Eternal Sunshine. Great film. Alright. I'm going to bring these closer to here to make this easier for myself. To put these... Oh, they're falling apart. Go down there. Okay, no, go down there. Alright, well... Here's a John Waters film starring a drag queen Divine. Playing Flamingos, one of the nastiest films ever made. One of the most vile films of all time. Like, it's one of those John Waters films and vile from start to finish. Crazy shit happens to that film. Borat, one of the funniest mockumentaries of all time, starring Sacha Baron Cohen. Borat is hilarious. They got Drilled Taylor, and fine little high school comedy starring Owen Wilson as his bodyguard that has to protect these bully kids. Alright movie for what it is. You got Miss Congeniality and Miss Congeniality 2. I like Miss Congeniality 1. I do not like Miss Congeniality 2 at all whatsoever. Pretty much another sequel that fucks over a good ending. Marley and Me, a movie where the trailers make this look like a funny movie, and then the actual movie comes out, and it's sad and depressing as shit. Like, I'm surprised. Like, I'm kind of surprised this is actually a comedy movie. This film is sad as fuck. One of the saddest dog films ever made. You want to cry your eye. If you want a dog film where you want to just cry your eyes out at the end, that's a film you should definitely turn on. That film will have you cry in a storm. Saturday Night Fever, a nice little 70s disco movie starring John Travolta. I've only seen it once, but it was definitely not a bad film. I think Grease is better though. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, fine little breakup comedy movie. Not much that memorable. Alright, I'm gonna lift these up. Zack and Miri Make a Porno, aka the film that Kevin Smith tried to make to be when he was kind of trying to be like the big leagues, except basically he caused this to flop himself by releasing this on Halloween Day. Like, nobody's gonna go watch a comedy on Halloween. Halloween people want to see horror. This is not a horror movie. Like, it's a fine film, but it's pretty much where Kevin Smith went downhill after this, because he bitched and whined about it flopping when he kind of shouldn't have released it on Halloween in the first place. Alright. Well, we got another trilogy right here. And that is, of course, Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. I definitely like these two the most. I think Split, I saw this in the theaters like one day, and I definitely really liked this film a lot. Unbreakable, though, I think is the best of the trilogy still. Glass was alright, but also very disappointing. Like, I really do not like that. Basically, the last scene you will ever see of Bruce Willis, because he's retired now, the last scene you see of him is being drowned in a puddle. That's not a good send-off for this guy. Come on, man. Alright, I'll just have to put you here. Alright. Tron. Nice, yeah, fine, I guess, but I think Tron Legacy is better. I'm one of the few that likes Tron Legacy a lot more. My Sister's Keeper, another sad as hell film. I mean, one of my biggest gripes with that film is that Cameron Diaz, who is a decent enough actress, actually does play a pretty good role. But her character in that film was such a bitch. So it's kind of hard for me to really sympathize with her character in that film, because her character was just just so unbearable. One of the worst mothers in the film ever. Robots! My favorite Blue Sky Studios animated movie, and just about nobody really cares, almost nobody really ever talks about it. Masterpiece of cinema, Jaws. Dun dun, dun 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 dun. First one's a classic, second one is not good, 3 and 4 can go to hell. Jaws is only a standalone film. Alright, so we're now on to some DreamWorks movies. Well, let's start off with pretty much what's their first franchise, which is the 3 Shrek films and 2 spin-offs. We got Shrek 1, comedy classic. Excuse me. Shrek 2, the even better sequel, the best one of the series. And, well, do not own Shrek the Third, and I think you know why. Why? Because it's terrible. Shrek Forever After, the actually proper Shrek the Third. And to me, pretty much the true end of the series. And now, there we go. And then you got the 2 Puss in Boots films. The original and the newest one, The Last Wish, which, honestly, I will definitely admit this. The Last Wish came off as kind of quite a big surprise at the very end of 2022. It was a film I thought was going to be really terrible from all the trailers, but I ended up randomly seeing the film, and I surprisingly ended up really loving it. But sadly, though, its success is now going to be spawning what is probably going to be a very terrible fifth movie, which I just saw from that trailer, and that film looks awful. Alright. The rest are DreamWorks films. Chicken easily by far my favorite stop-motion animated film. Absolute childhood classic. The Kung Fu Panda trilogy, these are the only 3 I recommend watching. I have seen Kung Fu Panda 4, and it was not good at all. So yeah, I'm not buying it. The How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, where you got Still have not unwrapped the packaging on these ones. The first two, and you've got the third one, The Hidden World. When it comes to these three movies, I will admit this. I like this one the most. I like this one second best. And I think the one that's still good, but my least favorite, is the first one. The reason being is because the first one, as much as I like the first one just really feels way too mean-spirited at times. That's the thing. The first one's kind of a bit of a mean-spirited film. But it's still good, but it kind of gets a little too mean-spirited at times. The sequel, on the other hand, is actually much better. They thankfully ditched the mean-spirited tone. They're actually much better. And the characters are much better in the second one. And the second one has an even better story. And it's actually willing to go a more mature route. Which I really love. They even had the balls to literally kill off a main character. Something a lot of animated franchises have a really hard time really doing after the first film, and then killing them off in the sequel. Ants, the film that kickstarted DreamWorks, and honestly, to me, this is the much better Bug's Life. And it's kind of weird I said that, but I think this film's just much better than A Bug's Life, to be fair. And almost a lot of people even hate that movie too, which I disagree. I think Ants is very underrated. The Little Mermaid, not a decent Disney film, but not really a great movie, I would say. 101 Dalmatians, I think, honestly, I like the Glenn Close version a lot better. Which I have that on VHS, but that's for another part. Oliver Company, one of the most underrated Disney movies of all time. And almost nobody remembers it. Got The Nightmare Before Christmas, another one of my favorite animated movies of all time. It's kind of a film to watch. I kind of like watching that one more on Christmas because I think it's more of a Christmas film. You got Homeward Bound 1, Homeward Bound 2 double feature, which I love the first one. The sequel, I'm not a fan of the sequel, to be honest. I only like the first one. Homeward Bound should have just stayed one movie. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a childhood classic, one of the greatest family movies of the 80s, easily. And this was a once in a lifetime event because this was the only time you will see Warner Brothers animated stuff and Disney animated stuff crossing over into one feature. So especially like the scene with Bugs Bunny and Mickey on parachutes, like that's something you'll never see anymore in today's world. And you got the double feature, An American Tail and American Tail 5 Goes West. I honestly like 5 Goes West better. This one's just kind of way too depressing from start. The first one's just too depressing from start to finish to really get through. So I think the first one's a much more better film. All right, we're on to some more Disney movies now. Beauty and the Beast, one of the best Disney movies of all time. You can never go wrong with Beauty and the Beast. In fact, like when I was a kid, I remember back in like middle school, I remember actually being in a stage musical for Beauty and the Beast. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, one of my I think this is probably my second favorite Disney animated movie of all time. I absolutely love this one. I think this one easily goes into dark. Love this one goes much darker. Like this is stuff like modern Disney could never make today. Second best Disney movie of all time. Hercules, also another great Disney childhood classic. Another one of Disney's best films. You gotta love Hades. Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. I love James Woods in that film. Emperor's New Groove, one of Disney's funniest films. I think what makes this movie great is just Yzma and Kronk from start to finish. You got late Eartha Kitt and Patrick Warburton having good villain chemistry with one another, and just, yeah. And we got some... Alright, now we got some modern Disney movies. And that is going to be Wreck-It Ralph, Big Hero 6, and Zootopia. I think easily when it comes to this one, like this is definitely another one of my favorite animated Disney films, one of my favorite modern animated Disney films. Ralph Breaks the Internet, I thought was fucking trash. One of the worst sequels of all time. Zootopia, easily my favorite modern Disney film of all time. And now I'm cautiously optimistic, but knowing Disney's reputation today, For the sequel, that is, I'm not trying not to get too hyped for it in case it ends up being disappointing. I hope it's not disappointing. I hope it's not. I hope it ends up still being good. That's the only Disney movie I'm actually trying to have any interest in watching, because I wanted a sequel from start as soon as that first one had released. Ugh, great, we're stuck. Alright. Okay, we got him in. We have one last pile to go. So, one I bought because Shadow Leon has recommended me this, but I have not watched it yet. Outbreak. Apparently it's the better version of Contagion. Talk to Me, a film I really liked. One of A24's best horror films, no doubt. Still waiting for Talk to Me 2. God, a double feature of The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. I absolutely love both these films. This one is easily one of the best films of all time. The Green Mile, easily another great film, but I think this one's definitely better. Inception, Christopher Nolan's best non-Batman film of all time. One of the best films of the 2010s. Memento, not bad for like one of Chris Nolan's first films. American History X, one of the darkest films of all time. Like, this is definitely one of Edward Norton's best roles. Right there, definitely another one of Edward Furlong's best films. Like, also one of the most shocking endings where Edward Furlong gets shot in the bathroom. Alita Battle Angel. I would have liked to see a sequel to this movie. Like, easily, definitely one of the best female-led films of today. Like, I wish we had Alita Battle Angel 2. But sadly, the movie didn't do well, so we're probably never going to get that movie now. It sucks. Prisoners. Definitely one of Denis Villeneuve's best films. Definitely absolutely love Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal's performances in this one. Just a great film Prisoners is. The Iron Claw. One of the saddest films of all time, but it's damn good. I'm still pissed off that this got snubbed for Barbie. Iron Claw should have got all of Barbie's attention instead. Not that movie. Barbie's not even that good of a film. The Whale, Brendan Fraser's biggest comeback. Definitely a good film, but it's definitely not definitely not a film to rewatch. Because of how really also depressing that movie is. Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler's best role yet. Yeah, man, this is the film that really revived Sandler's career, pretty much got him back onto the good path again. This film is just absolutely amazing. From start to finish. This film is really intense. This film is just crazy from start to finish. It never lightens up. Where he's playing this guy with a gambling addiction. Like, it's a film that just really does not light up on any anxiety and attention from start to finish. And Adam Sandler gives such a great performance in that film. After so many bad films he did, this is the film that really put him back on the map. Good Time for Robert Pattinson. It's good. It's not that memorable. It was the other film the directors did before Uncut Gems. The Pursuit of Happiness, one of Will Smith's best films, and the only Jaden Smith role that was actually good. The one though why casting Jaden Smith worked this one time was because he was Will Smith's real life son, and so obviously they wanted to get a kid and adult actor that were actually dad and son in real life, so it made their chemistry work well in this film. That's what actually made the casting work, is because they wanted the chemistry to be actually really terrific. You know, like, this is the only Jaden Smith role that's actually good. The only time I like Jaden Smith as an actor. The Prestige. I bought this yet, and I still haven't watched it. A Star is Born. I saw this opening weekend before I started working where I started my job. The last week I had of unemployment. Like, this was a film that I wish got Best Picture instead of Bohemian Rhapsody, which is another Best Picture winner. No, it's not a Best Picture winner. It's a more nominated film I also think I do not like. But this film, like, when I first saw this, I didn't even know this was even a fourth remake. But then eventually after I saw the film, I found out there was many other versions of the film. But yeah, I didn't even know this was a remake when I first saw it. But it was definitely a great film. Definitely Lady Gaga's best performance. Her and Bradley Cooper have such great chemistry in this film. I just wish it had a better ending, though. That's one of my gripes. Requiem for a Dream, the #1 scariest movie ever made. And yeah, this is someone who's a big horror buff. The #1 scariest movie ever made for me is not a horror film. It's a drama called This. Like, it's not just one of the scariest films ever made. It's one of the saddest films ever made. And the weirdest thing is, though, I've actually seen this movie a bunch of times. Because I actually just really love it. It's kind of weird how I'd watch this multiple times. Like, Don, you're crazy to watch this multiple times because it's so depressing. Yeah, it's so depressing, but I just really love it. I don't rewatch it every day, but I've watched it quite a few times. All right. The Wolf of Wall Street. I still need to watch this film. Bought it yet? I've never watched it yet. Wild, one of the newer Reese Witherspoon films, and gotta say, I definitely do like it. It's definitely one of her best roles in a while. I will say that I don't love it, but I definitely do like it. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, one of the best cult comedies of all time. Another one of the best Johnny Depp movies of all time. Cannot go wrong. Cannot go wrong. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, classic. Ghost, a '90s classic. Another '90s classic. Enough said. And then you got World Trade Center. To me, honestly, I think between this and United 93, I like this one. I like this one a little more. Yeah, granted, United 93 was more realistic, but this one, honestly, this one provides you a little more hope. Nicolas Cage and Michael Pena give such great performances and chemistry in this film when they're trapped under the rubble. Right here, like, this film is just definitely, honestly, good. And then Monster, one of Charlize Theron's best roles, and a role where she really deserved the Oscar for this role. We have her playing this real-life killer, Aileen Wuornos, and honestly, she does a great performance in this film. Yeah, she also does share the screen with Christina Ricci, which, personally, I like Christina Ricci as an actress, but I had some problems with her character in this film. But other than that, it's definitely still a great film. It's definitely still a good film. It definitely the role that Charlize Theron definitely deserved her winning the Oscar for this one. But yeah, that's it for part 4. I gotta end part 4 here. This has gone on quite a bit now. This is now like 51 minutes. I don't know how much longer the other parts are going to be, but I hope they're not too long. But yeah, till then, that'll be it for part 4. Thank you all for watching. Like this, want to see more? Don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone, and I will see you all in part 5.